Protobothrops flavorvirate is commonly known as a Takara habu, is a venomous pit viper endemic to the Yamaoshima Island in Japan. In 1979, Japan thought it had found the perfect solution to its deadly snake problem. People were dying from venomous bites and something had to be done fast. What kind of animals would hunt down and eat a habu? So they released snake killers on this island, small furry creatures that seem designed by nature to hunt deadly serpents. Mongoose is quite the predator itself, and its lightning-fast reflexes and thick hide have enabled it to add snakes like the cobra to its list of favored food. The plan was brilliant, the science was solid, and everyone was excited about this natural solution. But 25 years later, it turned into a disaster that shocked everyone. What started as a life-saving mission became one of the biggest ecological mistakes in wildlife history. The snake killers had succeeded, but not in the way anyone expected, and the island would never be the same again. The deadly problem that started it all. Yamaoshima Island in Japan, renowned for its verdant forests, was once haunted by a lethal menace, the habu snake. Far from being an ordinary serpent, the habu is among the most venomous snakes in Japan and earned a notorious reputation for its aggression and deadly bite. In 1,980 alone, approximately 400 individuals were bitten by habu snakes. Tragically, several victims succumbed to the venom, never returning home to their families. The habu snake belongs to the same family as rattlesnakes and puff adders, and its venomous nature aligns it with other infamous species such as cobras and coral snakes. Although an antidote to the snake's venom existed, it required cold storage to remain effective. Faced with increasing fatalities, widespread fear, and a limited healthcare infrastructure, the Japanese government recognized the urgency of the situation. Amid this crisis, an ingenious idea emerged. Instead of relying solely on modern medicine or infrastructure, why not turn to nature for a solution? The goal was to identify a predator that could control the habu population, a creature that could survive the venom and actively hunt the snakes. And authorities believed they had found exactly what they were looking for, the perfect snake killer. The small Asian mongoose was regarded as an ideal candidate to address Japan's escalating habu snake problem. This agile carnivorous mammal appeared to possess all the qualities necessary to serve as a natural predator capable of controlling the venomous snake population. Its speed, resilience to venom, and proven ability to combat similar snakes in other regions made it a compelling solution. For many, the mongoose seemed like a strategic and natural answer to an urgent public safety concern. One of the mongoose's most notable attributes is its remarkable speed and agility. Even more impressive is the mongoose's natural resistance to snake venom. Specialized receptors in its body reduce the potency of neurotoxins that would typically be fatal to most animals. This trait gave it a distinct advantage in direct encounters with venomous snakes. Over millions of years, the mongoose has evolved as a skilled snake predator. In its native habitats, countries such as India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, and Pakistan, mongooses have long played a vital role in keeping snake populations in check. Their fearless nature and experience in hunting serpents contributed to their reputation as formidable snake killers. On paper, the mongoose seemed to meet every requirement from both an ecological and logistical standpoint. The species appeared to be an ideal biological control agent. In 1979, the Japanese government moved forward with the plan. 30 small Asian mongooses were introduced to Yamaoshima Island. These animals were carefully selected and transported with the goal of launching a targeted effort to reduce the habu snake population. Officials hoped that in addition to managing the snake threat, the mongooses would also help control the island's growing rat population, which was creating problems for local farmers. At first, the strategy appeared both simple and promising. Let the mongooses roam freely, allow them to hunt the habu snakes, and gradually restore safety and ecological balance to the island. The introduction of a natural predator offered an appealing alternative to expensive infrastructure projects and the ongoing difficulties of distributing refrigerated antivenom in remote areas. It was seen as a cost-effective, long-term solution that could resolve two major problems simultaneously. The snake is unsure where to strike. The enemy is confusing, its collective parts interchanging yet strangely coordinating, uniting as one. Public reaction was largely positive. Many residents and government officials welcomed the initiative with enthusiasm, hopeful that this small animal would finally bring an end to years of fear and uncertainty. The arrival of the mongooses was heralded as the beginning of a safer, more manageable future for the island's inhabitants. But one thing is theory, and another is real life. When perfect plans meet reality, the mongooses arrived on Yamaoshima Island ready for battle. They were healthy, hungry, and equipped with all the natural tools they needed to hunt down every habu snake on the island. The local government watched and waited for the snake population to start dropping. Months passed. Then, years, something strange was happening. The mongooses were thriving on the island, but the habu snakes were still everywhere. The snake killers weren't killing snakes. Here's where the plan hit its first major problem. Mongooses are active during the day. They like to hunt and explore when the sun is shining. But habu snakes are nocturnal, which means they only come out at night. The mongooses were going to bed just as the snakes were waking up, and the snakes were hiding in their dens when the mongooses were looking for breakfast. The two species were living on the same island, but on completely different schedules. But even if their timing had been perfect, there was a second problem that nobody had thought about. Snakes are actually pretty tricky prey to catch. They're fast, they're dangerous, and they fight back. Catching a snake takes a lot of effort and energy, and there's always a risk of getting hurt, even for a mongoose. Meanwhile, the island was full of much easier prey. There were mice running around everywhere, rabbits hopping through the grass, and birds building nests in low trees. For a hungry mongoose, it was like choosing between a dangerous gourmet meal that might fight back and a simple fast food dinner that couldn't hurt you. The mongooses made the smart choice. They ignored the dangerous snakes and went after the easy meals instead. Why risk getting bitten by a habu snake when there were plenty of tasty, harmless animals to eat? By 1993, the situation had become impossible to ignore. The mongoose population was exploding. From the original 30 animals, there were now thousands of mongooses running around the island. The Ministry of Environment raised the alarm when they realized the population had grown to around 10,000 mongooses. The snake killers had completely failed at their one job, but they were incredibly successful at making more mongooses. The island was now dealing with two problems instead of one. They still had dangerous snakes. Plus, they now had thousands of hungry mongooses eating everything in sight. But the real disaster was just beginning. The unexpected victims. While everyone was focused on the mongoose and snake situation, something terrible was happening in the shadows. The mongooses had discovered that Yamaoshima Island was like a giant buffet table, and they were hungry guests who didn't know when to stop eating. The mongoose population at Kawaiui Marsh has exploded in recent years, killing endangered birds. The island wasn't just any ordinary piece of land. Yamaoshima is a subtropical paradise and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This means it's home to some of the rarest and most special animals in the entire world. Many of these animals had lived on the island for thousands of years without any natural predators. The mongooses found these animals and they couldn't believe their luck. Here were creatures that had never learned how to run away, hide properly, or fight back. The main victim of this disaster was the Amami rabbit, often called a living fossil. Once widespread across the mainland, these ancient rabbits now survived only on two small islands. They had endured ice ages and eruptions, but not the mongooses. Hunted by a predator they had never encountered, the Amami rabbit population plummeted. Other unique species also suffered, including the Amami spiny rat, which had evolved specifically for the island's environment. Within just a few years, around 15 endemic species were threatened. The balanced ecosystem, thousands of years in the making, was collapsing. Mongooses weren't only preying on animals, they were raiding bird nests, eating eggs, and threatening future generations. In just 2 decades, habitats of small animals had shrunk by 40%. The animals brought in to kill snakes were now destroying the ecosystem. By the early 2000s, Yamaoshima faced an ecological crisis. What began as a solution to a snake problem had become an environmental disaster. The mongoose population had surged from 30 to over 10, 0. Each mongoose, needing food daily, became a threat to all native life. The island's isolation had allowed its species to evolve uniquely, but it also made them defenseless to invaders. Mongooses devoured anything they could catch – mammals, birds, reptiles, insects, eggs, and even fruit. Scientists started documenting the damage. Amami rabbits, once common, were becoming rare. Spiny rats were also vanishing. These creatures, perfectly adapted to the island over millions of years, stood no chance. Birds were in decline too, and the once vibrant forest grew quieter. Something had to be done, and fast, but removing 0 mongooses from such a large island would be no easy task. The real battle was just beginning. In 2000, the Japanese government finally admitted what everyone on the island already knew. The mongoose experiment had been a complete disaster. The snake killers had become ecosystem destroyers, and immediate action was needed to save the island's unique wildlife. The Ministry of Environment launched an active program to reduce the mongoose population. This wasn't going to be a simple job. The first attempts were pretty basic. Officials set up simple traps along the roads, hoping to catch mongooses as they traveled around the island. But this approach barely worked. The mongooses were smart enough to avoid most of the traps. It quickly became clear that a much more serious approach was needed. The government began using specialized traps designed specifically for mongooses. They started using toxic baits and special attractants, substances that would lure mongooses with their smell. The idea was to make the traps so appealing that mongooses couldn't resist investigating them. Scientists brought in different monitoring techniques to track the mongoose population. The turning point came when local residents joined the effort. In 2005, a group called the Amami Mongoose Busters was formed, consisting of locals and wildlife experts. They knew the terrain and set up 30 traps across the island, venturing deep into dense, remote forests despite the heat and physical challenges. Gradually, their efforts began to work. The traps were catching mongooses, and search dogs were finding dens that humans would have missed. Over time, the mongoose numbers dropped from thousands to hundreds. Native wildlife began to rebound. Amami rabbit populations started to grow again, and endangered birds were successfully breeding. In April 2018, the last mongoose was captured. After that, no more mongooses appeared, traps remained empty, cameras silent, and dogs found nothing. In 2024, after years of monitoring, experts officially declared Yamaoshima mongoose-free. This achievement was remarkable. Globally, there have only been 9 confirmed cases of successful mongoose eradication. Yamaoshima became the largest island where this had ever been accomplished. Over the program's duration, about 32,000 mongooses were removed more than 0 times the original number introduced. The cost of the campaign was high, with millions spent on tools, technology, and personnel. But the cost of doing nothing would have been the collapse of a unique ecosystem. What do you think about this incredible story? Have you ever heard of other cases where trying to solve one problem created an even bigger problem? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.